Before partition, this land wasn't India and Pakistan. It was a civilization thousands of years old, ruled by empires like the Mughals and Marathas, and later called British India. Under the British Raj, it was one of the richest regions on earth, producing 25% of the world's economy. That changed in 1757. After the Battle of Plassey, the British East India Company began a century of extraction that drained India's wealth, industry, agriculture, and millions of lives. From 1765 to 1938, Britain extracted what economists estimate as the modern equivalent of $45 trillion. Indian textiles were destroyed, farmers forced into cash crops, and entire industries dismantled, so British factories could dominate global markets. India's share of the world economy collapsed from 25% to under 3% by 1947. This wasn't mismanagement. It was engineered dependency. The human cost was catastrophic. In 1770, the Bengal famine killed 10 million people under East India Company rule. Between 1876 and 1900, several British-linked famines killed another 10 to 20 million. The worst came in 1943, the Bengal famine under Winston Churchill. Over 3 million died, while grain was exported and ships carrying food bypassed starving Indians. Churchill blamed Indians for breeding like rabbits. These were political decisions, not natural disasters. British rule also included brutal repression, land seizures, collective punishments, crushing of revolts, and massacres like Jallianwala Bagh in 1919, where troops fired on unarmed civilians. India was kept divided religiously, ethnically, politically to weaken resistance. Divide and rule was not a slogan, it was policy. Then came 1947. Britain drew the border the Radcliffe Line in just 5 weeks. The man drawing it had never been to India before. The line cut through villages, rivers and homes, creating instant enemies out of neighbours. As the empire rushed out, it left behind no protection, no transition, no stability. The result was the largest forced migration in human history. Between 14 and 18 million people were displaced. Trains arrived full of dead bodies. Villages were burned. Women abducted. Families disappeared. Death estimates range from 200,000 to 2 million. Modern historians agree around 1 million died in the chaos of partition. British forces were still stationed in India, but they did not intervene. Partition wasn't just a tragic mistake. It was the final wound of nearly 2 centuries of extraction and division. Before colonization, India was one of the world's great civilizations. Under British rule, it became one of the poorest, and the partition of 1947 remains one of the deepest scars in modern history. Empires fall, but the pain they leave behind does not vanish. It lives in the memories, borders, and nations created through suffering. Understanding this is not about hate, it is about truth. Because the modern world was built on the consequences of colonialism, and India is one of the clearest examples of how empire rewrites the destiny of millions.